Right, taking us in the next session is none other than Bolaji Oyekan. He is a lead auditor at A4S. So he will be taking us on ISO 9001, talking about quality management systems. Mr. Bolaji, are you on the call?
Oh, yes. Good morning. I'm on the call. I'm with you. Good morning.
All right, please, you can take it off from here. Please, if you have any question in this session, you can raise your hand and you'll be called, or you put your question in the chat room. Mr. Bolaji, please, you also do us the honors to be checking the chat room. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mercy. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope we're doing well today. I'm glad to be here today, as it is, right? I initially had some network challenges, but yeah, sure that we have some prayer warriors on the call. They've prayed and all of that. We are here right now. So yeah, that makes sense. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I hope we're doing well. Again, I've been given the opportunity right here today to speak to what we'll call, or what people know as QMS, Quality Management System, right? Other people call it ISO 9001, whatever you call it, right? Whatever that thing is that you call it, it's fine, whether it's ISO 9001 or whether it's QMS. And what is the purpose of, this ISO 9001? We should understand the fact that you as an organization, you as an individual, you have an organization, you are leading a group of people, you can actually do ISO 9001 because it's process-based. So that means every process you have in the organization as it is, right, you can introduce quality management system. To start with, what is even quality, right? What is quality? Can be understood as a degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfill requirements. So that means we have a bench, something we're benchmarking against. That means we have a standard. That means we have something we're looking at before we introduce something. So you're introducing something that must meet a specific requirement, standard, as the case may be. So in whatever business context we have or that we are talking about, right, we can introduce QMS or ISO 9001 into that particular business, into that particular process as it is, right? Quality reflects, the ability of a product, service, process to meet or exceed these expectations consistently, right? What are these expectations? That is the criteria, that's the requirement or the standard we started with, right? So that means it reflects the ability of a product, of a service, or process to meet or exceed these expectations every now and then. That is the idea of quality, right? And in simple terms, it's about doing the right thing the right way. When you do the things the right way, you're doing the right things the right way, then we are talking about quality management system, right? Understanding quality and its importance. Quality can be multidimensional, depending on the product, depending on that service, business environment that you have, or that you find yourself, as the case may be. And we are talking about quality. This can be the dimension. We talk about durability, talk about reliability, serviceability, conformance, right? Something is conforming to a particular thing. We're talking about aesthetics also, meeting something or meeting a criteria as the case may be. It is still quality management system, right? And if we're talking about quality management system, we're talking about customer loyalty, customer satisfaction. There's no way you want to talk about QMS or ISO 9001. Remember, I mentioned whether you're talking about ISO 9001 or QMS, you're still talking about the same thing. People use it interchangeably as the case may be. We're talking about you meeting customer customer requirements, customer satisfaction level, as the case may be. We're talking about reputational management, brand value, and all of those other things, right? When you do quality management system, you are looking at, being competitive in the market space. You're looking at being competitive in the market space. right? I will quickly brush through all of these things because I still want us to, talk about a particular thing as it is, right? But let's brush towards these things. I mentioned customer satisfaction already. I mentioned reputation and brand value. I mentioned cost efficiency and waste reduction. When you have a particular standard or criteria that is guiding the production of your product or how you render service, then right, you're talking about how you reduce waste, right? Staff morale and engagement. Employees who work in a quality-focused environment often feel more engaged and motivated. In an environment that we have a particular structure, we have a structure, but we have a structure that we're benchmarking our own structure towards, and that's what we talk about. That's when we talk about quality, right? So if we talk about quality when it comes to employee morale and engagement, we're talking about how employees who work in a quality-focused environment often feel more engaged and motivated. A structure that works, an environment that works, employees feel more motivated, feel valued at every point in time, which helps productivity. It helps productivity, brings about good turnover rates, and also there's this environment that has positive values, positive culture all around, right? It helps you to guide against regulatory requirements and compliance for any legal issue or compliance issue as the case may be. Also, risk management. By embedding quality management system or quality structure into place, it brings about quality business process. We've mentioned that already. And companies are better equipped, when they have a particular quality identity, that they have in the face of everybody out there. We mentioned competitive advantage already, as the case may be, right? So there's something I want to drive at here. Let's also understand the fact that this quality management system can be introduced or done by anybody, irrespective of that business that you're doing, irrespective of the process that you are involved in. Quality management system or ISO 9001 can be introduced at any point. You can introduce it in your manufacturing space, healthcare space, IT services, retail businesses, social engagement, and all of those other things, even in religious activities. You can introduce quality in any way. Understanding quality and its importance in business, in manufacturing. Let's cite an example. A car manufacturer ensures that all parts are produced to specification. Remember where we're coming from? We have a particular specification we're driving at, and our standard is right here. So if you're driving towards that particular specification, we're talking about quality. So a car manufacturer wants to work towards a specification, and we are minimizing defects and recalls. What do? We ensure that we produce car at a very quality rate, so that we ensure that people or manufacturers don't call for them to return the vehicle, them to return a particular product or machinery, as the case may be. Same in health sector, right? If an hospital follows a strict hygiene protocols, and a continuous training of its staff, and all of that, it brings about, delivery of their service. It brings about rendering quality health services to everybody that comes, maybe patients and other individuals that come, into the organization or into the hospital, into healthcare facility, as the case may be, in the IT sector, in retail business. So let's understand the fact that, as I mentioned, there is no particular organization that cannot implement or that cannot carry out what we call ISO 9001 or Quality Management System, QMS, remember? And when we talk about ISO, it's an international organization for standardization, which was established in 1947. Their headquarters is in Geneva, Switzerland. All these ones, right? You just have to, scan through them so that we can draw much on, what we really have at hand. And this ISO 9001 that we're talking about, we have other ISO standards, right? We have ISO 22301, talk about business continuity management system, talk about information technology service management system, and a whole lot more. We have over 20,000 of them, right? We have over 20,000 of them. What is the relevance, or let me say, why do we talk about ISO in particular? What's the relevance of ISO? Global relevance, quality assurance, risk management, market confidence. When you have ISO as an organization that you use to drive your business or processes in the organization, then you talk about relevance, right? Then you talk about market confidence. You go into the market, there is no problem. You go into the market having the understanding that you have a good reputation out there. People believe that your product or the service that you render is quality based, right? That is quality based. Why ISO matters: global relevance, quality assurance, risk management, market confidence. People believe that what you have, what you produce, the service that you render, right? It makes sense. There's confidence around it. People are confident to buy your product. People are confident to buy your product. And we have ISO 9001 family, right? It starts from ISO 9000, right? It starts from ISO 9000. It's a family. But let's have it at the back of our mind. ISO 9001, right, can be what can be implemented in the organization, and it is certifiable, right? This can be implemented, and you can also get certificates to this in particular when you implement ISO 9001. When you implement ISO 9001. This is the family, right? This is the overview. ISO 9001 is the family. 9004 is the guidance to ISO 9001. ISO 9001 is the guidance. When we say guidance, it talks about how you want to implement that ISO 9001. It offers guidance on how you want to implement ISO 9001, for achieving sustainable organizational structure for management system, for quality management system. So you cannot get certified to ISO 9001. Let me say that again. Please note, you cannot get certified to ISO 9001, but you can get certified to ISO 9001. You cannot get certified to ISO 9004, ISO 9004, but you can get certified to ISO 9001, right? ISO 9004 is a guidance for implementation, guidance for achieving a sustainable implementation for ISO 9001. I'm taking that as slow as possible so that we will not mix things up. ISO 9001, you can't see anybody tell you, I have ISO 9001 lead implementer, lead auditor, or people say, I am, my organization is certified to ISO 9001. There is no how, there is no way. However, ISO 9004 is a basic input as a guidance document to implement ISO 9001, right? I think I see someone raising up his hand. Komi, did I pronounce that correctly? Please go ahead. You want to ask a question?
Yes, thank you very much. I think I'm getting a little bit confused about your explanation on
Okay.
the ISO
Okay.
9004 and 9001. Please,
Okay.
can you take this part once again?
Okay. So what I said was ISO 9000, that is the family of ISO standards when it comes to quality management, right? However, I mentioned that ISO 9004 is a guidance document to ISO 9001, or is a guidance document for ISO 9000 family. If you read what is in front of ISO 9001, it says it offers guidance for achieving sustained organizational success beyond compliance. ISO 9001 says maintain standard with specific requirements for quality management system. For people that are familiar with ISO 9001, right? I said you cannot get certified to ISO 9004, You will not see any individual tell you, I'm certified as an organization, or we are certified as an organization to ISO 9004. And I, as a person, I'm certified, I have lead implementer or lead auditor for ISO 9004. That is not possible. However, I said, you will see people tell you, I'm a QMS lead implementer. I am a QMS. And when I say QMS, remember I mentioned QMS is also ISO 9001, right? QMS lead implementer or QMS lead auditor, or as an organization, we are certified to ISO 9001. So that is the difference. Do you get it now, Komi?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you for following, right? So look at this again. ISO 9001 is just fundamental vocabulary, when it comes to the basic concept, terminologies, definitions, as the case may be for ISO 9000 family. ISO 9001 is the requirement in itself, where you begin to see criteria that you must do. If you have these documents, you see something that speaks to you shall do this, you shall do this, you shall do this. The leadership of the organization shall do this. And when you hear shall, it's something that should be ticking already on the top of our head, saying that I must do this, if I want to get better in this process, or we want to get better as an organization. All right? Let's move on. How the ISO 9001 family supports quality management system alignment across industries. As I mentioned, there is no particular industry, right, that cannot implement ISO 9001. ISO 9000 emphasizes customer satisfaction, right? That is the essence, whether you are producing something or whether you are rendering a service or you are driving out as is to give that customer the satisfaction they want or that they deserve, right? That is the idea of, and we talk about, encouraging continual improvement at every point in time, flexible framework in itself. These are the benefits of ISO 9001. Improved processes. Remember, we mentioned that already. Customer satisfaction, global market access, risk management, as the case may be. ISO certification process. You see ISO 9001, right? Not ISO 9004. Not certification standard, right? You see that, Komi, again. Why ISO 9001 is certification based. Others such as ISO 9004, 19011, they are just used as guidelines, to improve quality and auditing principle. That is what those ones are meant to do. ISO 9001 is a standard. ISO 9001 is a standard that sets out the requirements for a quality management system. It helps businesses and organizations, right, to be more efficient and improve customer satisfaction, as the case may be. The present version that we have now that is recognized, is 2015 version. We have one that is already in play. Maybe it might come up later this year, I believe, right? But the one that is widely acceptable for now, that people are getting certification to, is ISO 9001 2015 version. I mentioned, right, ISO 9001 can be used by any organization. So it's suitable for all organizations. Whether you are 2-man in that organization, you are 50, you are 1,000, you are millions, as the case may be, you can implement ISO 9001. It's for all sectors. I mentioned that already. Whether you have, you are running a religious enterprise, you are running a social gathering, you have a manufacturing company, and all sorts of, right, you can implement ISO 9001. In fact, one of the key improvements of the newly revised 2015 version was to make it more applicable and accessible to all types of enterprise across board. Right. So smaller companies that do not have staff dedication to quality can still employ the benefits of implementing the standard. Right. You can employ that as an organization. What is the purpose of this ISO 9001 certification? I'm rushing so that I will get to a particular spot that we will need to all get and understand, improves quality, right? It improves quality. It improves quality, and your quality is consistent. It's not something you do today or something that you improve on today and tomorrow is down and it is not improved. That is not the idea of ISO 9001. So improving quality consistently. You are not satisfied with status quo, saying that so far this is what people want, we are maintaining it and all of that. There's still a better way to do it, right? Reason why we mention about improving quality consistently. Improving quality consistently. It's a basis for continual improvement or continuous improvement. You are going towards satisfying, customer at every point in time. At every point in time, you always want to satisfy customer. You always want to satisfy customer. I'm seeing a question saying, how effective is ISO 9001 in small business compared to large multinational companies? I will start with asking the question of asking, what kind of business are we talking about? That's why I said, no matter how your small, how your business, how small scale you are operating, or how small that business is, ISO 9001 can be implemented. Remember, I mentioned for every process. For every process. So if you as a person, you are running a printing organization and you only have yourself as the MD and you have one PA and that's all you have, that particular process that you handle as the MD or that particular process that you handle as the PA, right? There is a better way of handling that particular process. Reason why some other two-man business that you are in that printing line, they are probably getting more and more businesses or getting better or they are expanding by the day, right? So that means there's a possible and effective way, more better way of doing that particular process. ISO 9001 is process-based. So irrespective of a particular process that you are handling, right, you can implement ISO 9001. Please, can I understand the meaning of ISO, origin, who designed them? I mentioned earlier on, ISO is, ISO 9001 is developed by ISO, is a body, International Organization for Standardization. That body came up 1947. It's earlier discussed in our slide, right? And they came up with this idea. I mentioned that we have over 20,000 ISO standards. So in the context of what we're talking about today is QMS, ISO 9001. I mentioned that we have, business continuity management system, information security management system, there's asset management system, there's human resource, and a whole lot more. It's a lot of them. But I mentioned ISO 9001 can be implemented in any kind of organization, whether it is small, it is big, no matter the function, no matter the product, ISO 9001 can be put into effective use, right? It can be put into effective use. Risk management is key component, definitely. For every process that you have as an organization, for every process, there's a risk to it. For every process, there's a risk to it. The risk that your PA will not deliver that product as you expected. There's a risk to everything that you have in the that you do in the organization, right? We've mentioned these benefits, customer satisfaction and loyalty. When they keep coming back, when they know that they get satisfied, when they buy your product or when you render that particular service to them, they get satisfied, right? We mentioned that. Let's move on. Improve operational efficiency and reduce waste. We've mentioned that already. I'll not, repeat that. Better risk management, right? It helps your decision when it comes to decision making. Improved supplier relationship. Enhanced marketability and brand reputation. Why is it that this particular product is still selling till today? It's a brand reputation that they've built over the years, right? It's a brand reputation they built over the years. Positive impact on organizational culture. When you have, I mentioned something earlier on, ISO 9001 is for every process, and that means if every process is well vetted and has quality embedded in it, quality-centric culture will take over the whole place, and you get accustomed to it as an organization as it is. We've mentioned this already. Quality refers to the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics of a product or service that you render or processes, right, meets customer requirements, as the case may be. The process approach is a foundation element for ISO 9001. Please don't let us run away from that. If we are not picking anything away, right, we need to understand that as it is. There's something we call PDCA. Plan, do, check, act, right? I will explain that to us in a bit with a chart, right? I will explain that to us in a bit. Okay, so let me stay here a little bit. There's something in ISO 9001 we call clause 4 to 10. It starts from clause 1, we have clause 2, we have clause 3, 4, but from clause 1 to 3, they are not they don't have any particular requirement that guides or that is saying we shall do something as an organization, right? So for clause 4, 5, 6, 7, it's particularly talking about how you are planning for something. I'm not talking to plan, check, do, act now. People call it PDCA. Some people say PCDA. I believe it's better put as PDCA cycle and not PCDA cycle. P is for plan, D is for do, C is for check, A is for acting, saying you are acting based on something that you have checked. Plan is when you plan for something, when you begin to implement that quality process in the organization, in your department, in delivering that particular service that you are rendering as an individual, right, or as an organization. So if we are planning, we're talking about, understanding what you are doing as an organization. We're planning about who is the leader or in that organization, or who drives that conversation in the organization, who is like the top management face, right, as it is. And when it comes to clause 6, we're talking about you planning now. You looking at the policy, you looking at the objectives of the organization, planning of changes, and so on and so forth, right? That's what we're looking at when we talk about quality management system. Clause 4 is understanding the context of the organization. Clause 5 is leadership. Clause 6 is planning. Clause 7 is support. Clause 8 is operations. That is the core of your quality management system. Clause 9, is the performance evaluation. You are looking at metrics. Have we met, or are we meeting the requirements of the standard? Are we meeting the criteria that we have set for ourselves, the metrics, the objective that we have laid down, even when we started the organization or when we started rendering this service to people? What about improvement? So you've checked and you see that there are lapses here, there are lapses there. How do you now put in things into perspective? How do you make it better? How do you bring about improvement initiative? That's the idea that we're talking about. That is what we're trying to do as an organization or as an individual. Remember, I mentioned it can be implemented by everybody. It can be implemented by all sizes, all business type, as the case may be. Plan, you see, establish the objective of the system and its processes and resources that are needed. Do is the implementation. Now, that is the clause 8. Clause 9 is the checking. That's where you see the internal audit. That's where you see the performance evaluation. That is where you will see the management review. And for acting, that is where you begin to see, let's look at where we have problem. How can we close the gap? What is the continual improvement initiative that we have? Right? We've mentioned something around risk-based thinking earlier on. Risk-based thinking is essential for achieving an effective quality management. It's essential. There's no two way to it. It helps you to conform to the requirements of this same international standard, QMS, right? And don't forget, I've not mentioned that. So when you talk about risks in the organization, you can't overflow risks and don't understand that we have opportunities around them. How do we want to mitigate this risk? How do we want to treat them? How are we accepting this particular risk? And if you're accepting, right, do you have the capability to accept? At some point, we talk about something like a risk appetite thereof. We'll still touch that when we move ahead, right? When we move ahead. Let's see this. If I speak to you on this alone, so I think you can do a screenshot of this, to follow me so that you will not, so that you follow me and you understand what we're trying to do or what we're trying to explain. I mentioned clause 4 the other time. This is context of the organization. And inside of that clause 4, we have subclauses. Inside of clause 5, we have subclauses. Same thing with 6 down to 10. All of them have subclauses. All of them have subclauses. Continuous monitoring and evaluation framework and implementation tools like activity, log frame, right? You are very correct. You are very correct. Right? This helps you, only that you have to channel it towards knowing this continuous monitoring, evaluation, and all of that. Now you're talking about clause 9, you're talking about clause 10. If you're talking about improvement, you're talking about clause 10. If you're talking about evaluation, you're talking about clause 9, right? Let's move on, right? Context of the organization. This is when, you understand the context of the organization, what you stand for, what you do as an organization. You have to understand the needs and expectation. So in as much as you have that organization, have at the back of your mind that, you have interested parties too, whether they are now positive individuals or negative. Interested parties can be whether they mean well or they don't mean well. What are their needs and expectations? Your competitors, right? They are your interested parties. They are interested in what you are producing or what you are rendering as a service. If you are an event manager, you also have a competitor that you are looking up to, or maybe that you are looking at how are they succeeding, or how are they getting businesses, or how are they managing this particular project or events and all of that. Those are your competitors. What are their needs and expectations? You have to highlight them. What about scope? What about management system? There's something around clause 4.4 that speaks to how the processes, how they interact together, right? How they interact together. When it comes to clause 5, leadership, there's no way you want to do something in the organization. Take, for example, an organization, right, that produces, let's say clothes and all. There is leadership at some point. Leadership at the managerial level, leadership at the people that are controlling, the organization in itself, the top management of that organization. There's no way you want to achieve something in the organization and there's no involvement of leadership there. I'm sure you will agree with me 100% on that. Leadership of the organization, it goes a long way. It goes a long way. Leadership talk, they come about, the policy that drives the organization, talk about the objectives of that organization, how we want to achieve the objective. Achieving one of the objectives can capture how we would reduce the risks in our organization, the risk impacts in our organization by 50% and all of that. That can be an objective. And if that is an objective, what are you doing, right, to really, capture the things you want to put in place to achieve that objective? In the objective, there's something we'll call tasks or that we do to fulfill the obligations of those objectives. We have something like time factor. When do you want to, achieve that particular objective. So there's a time frame to it. It's not so that means if you're working towards an objective this year, we're not expecting that you have that same objective next year. That's not our expectation. Our expectation is that you have achieved that objective, and going forward, you are setting another objective that probably it's on a high level now, and you're going towards how you want to achieve that objective too. Right? You see that I jumped to 6 already because I already mentioned leadership in clause 5. And I mentioned that it's only leaders that can, develop policy. It's only leaders in the organization that can establish, approve a policy. And the ones that also assign roles and responsibility. Maybe they will tell the HR, human resource executive, right? But they are the ones to give that directive. Planning is when you talk about your risk, when you talk about your objectives, and when you talk about changes in the organization. I can talk about this from now till evening when it comes to risks and opportunities. Risk is a big deal. So in QMS, Quality Management System, or ISO 9001, right? Let's put at the back of our mind that it is process-based. It is process-based. I'm emphasizing that again. That means that I mentioned earlier on, we have business continuity management system. We have information. Right? Is it quality based? Do market survey, right? That's a process. That's a process. Please, I hope you can still hear me. I saw a comment around, can't hear you anymore. I hope you can hear me. Please, you can unmute and tell me. Please, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So for every process in the organization, so I was citing an example for procurement. You do market survey. You do maybe the buying or the purchase. Market survey is a process. Buying is a process. Another one is maybe is it the maintenance? Now I wouldn't know whether that sits with procurement, but that's also a process. For each of those processes, there are risks to them. Am I correct? There are risks to them. And we're saying that for all of these risks, have we assessed our risks? And it's not enough for us to assess the risks alone. We also have to treat those risks. So in as much as you're assessing all the risks based on every process you have in that department or in that organization or in what you do, you are also, after assessment, you are treating them. You definitely need to treat the risk that you are assessing in the organization. And what do I mean by treating the risk? This is what I mean. Let's cite an example. One of the risks you have in the organization, right, is, let's say, the risk to maybe staff in the organization that you have not verified them. Let's say the risk to, let's take it back to our procurement now. Risk to buying a faulty machinery. I hope you know that's a risk. That what you are buying might not necessarily, work as perfect as you want. That's a risk. How do you treat it? That means you have done your market survey. That means you are buying from maybe, let's say, a recognized vendor. A vendor that is recognized, a vendor that has a particular brand value that you follow every now and then. That makes sense, right? That is how you can treat those risks. How you do your due diligence when it comes to how you even onboard your suppliers. That can be how you treat your risk that you have assessed. Right? For opportunities, what we're doing right now is an opportunity for you. What we're doing right now is an opportunity for you and for me. For you, okay, let's say you're getting better knowledge or better idea, better value, or better let's say you're getting competence, you're getting knowledge for ISO 9001. Let's take, for example, you don't know it at all before. It's an opportunity that you're on this call, and on the long run, you have competence for this particular opportunity that you're given. This is an opportunity. What level is that opportunity? You now determine whether it's on a low level, medium level, on an high level. Same thing with the risk. We must have risk matrix to define, this is the risk level, this is the likelihood of that risk happening, this is the impact of that risk happening. Planning of changes, every change in the organization. Our CEO is now part of our board member. Let's document it. This our particular vendor is no more delivering computer systems to us. They are now dealing with CCTV and all of that. You have to document it. This particular 6.3 is talking about the risk that directly affects the management system. The risk that directly affects the management system. 7.1 talks about resources. Every resource that we have in the organization. People resource, financial resource, technological resource, every resource. Every resource. Even information assets is also a resource. 7.2 is competence. How sure are we that, the people that have implemented management system, they are competent when it comes to the delivery of that particular process in the organization or ISO 9001 in itself. Competence. You see people tell me that you have lead auditor certificate. That's a particular competence. Some people will tell you have LI, lead implementer certificate. That's a competence. So whether you have lead implementer or lead auditor, that's a sample. I think Messi that I introduced earlier on mentioned that I audit. That's what I do. So if as an auditor, I'm asking you in the organization and I'm asking you, please, what have you done in line with competence? And you start to tell me, so my internal auditor has done this training and he is now competent to ISO 9001. He has a lead auditor. Our QMS manager also possesses LI, lead implementer certificate, as the case may be, right? That's competence. And also let's know that, competence goes down even your schooling. But in line with ISO 9001, we usually mention jokingly, so you've gone to school and all of that. Yes, you are competent. But when it comes to ISO 9001, you are not competent. And that's the reason why we ask you that, do you have a lead implementer certificate or lead auditor certificate? Some people have QMS practitioner, right? Let's move on. Awareness. Awareness is different from communication. What do I mean? I mean, awareness, you get feedbacks. I usually say awareness is reactive, but someone mentioned to me that you shouldn't be using reactive, right? That you should use I get feedback when it comes to awareness. But this is what I mean by being reactive. I mean, people will react and ask questions. People would ask you questions, clarification. I don't understand this. I don't understand that. And that is what I mean by awareness is reactive. When you tell people this is how you do this is how you do that, you are making them aware. Awareness is usually like a 30-minute session, 1 hour session, telling people that this is this in the organization. This is our policy. These are the objectives that we have as an organization, right? That is awareness. Communication, you don't get a feedback from communication. Maybe you have been told that you have to acknowledge this, but that is not, seeking clarification for something. So I'm sure you have a bank that you use. Most of the time when you get something from them, like don't communicate your PIN, protect your BVN, your NIN is not to be given to this and this should not be given to that. That is a communication. They are not necessarily waiting for your feedback. They are not necessarily waiting for you to respond to them, but it's a communication for you to be, to know what is what the requirements of the organization is from you that you need to do. Documented information is the perspective of saying that, this is how our documented information in the organization is. For the people that are used to organizational setting, you will see documents that are noted as confidential. You see documents that are noted as restricted, that are noted as internal. You even see documents that are public. What's the idea of being public? Anybody can see that document. Internal, it is restricted to everybody in the organization alone. Confidential, a lot of people have appointment letter. Your appointment letter is confidential. It's not for everybody in the organization. That means it's not internal, it's confidential. Some people have restricted. Maybe this restricted is now restricted or just meant for top management, HR, maybe high-level individuals in the organization. That is a subset of 7.5 documented information. For every document that you have in the organization, you are expected to have a guidance book, a guidance document that guides how you develop all documents. When it comes to what is the reference number, how do you name your document, what is the revision number, and all of that. When do you review your documents? Is it on an annual basis? Is it every now and then? And so on and so forth. That's the idea of documented information. As little as it can be. I'm sure that you know that, in the organization, or let me now bring it home a little bit. For font style, we have Arial, we have Calibri, we have Aptos, we have Time New Roman, and all of that. Some organization, you just see that what they use is Time New Roman. Some they use Aptos, some they use Calibri, some they use Book Antique, and so on and so forth. We have a lot of them. So if in the organization you are using Time New Roman, and some person in a department is using Calibri, that person is not developing a document that is meant for the organization formally. Clause 8 is the operation. That's the heartbeat of ISO 9001, as I mentioned, for the few minutes that we have left. Right? ISO 9001 is a big deal. Let me remind us again. It's a big deal. In 8, you begin to talk about the requirements gathering. You begin to talk about design and development. So for every department, for every process, right, we have this ISO 9001 embedded. How do you design and develop that product? Or how do you design and develop that particular service that you render? How do you produce that product? How do you end in your production when you are rendering your service? So for people that are rendering service, you'll be thinking on the top of your head, how do I produce? That's not the production line, right? So for your 8.5 in rendering service, you are talking about how you carry out that particular service. So if your organization is just to render service when it comes to event planning, how do you, when it comes to the D-Day of rendering that service, how do you go about rendering that service? There's design and development at the back end, even before you now say that maybe that particular day, this person is taxing us with the responsibility of, managing this event and all of that. Before that particular day, what have you been doing to design, to say we are gathering these requirements and all of that? That's the idea of clause 8. And for people, right, we have for types of cars that we have, that there are different operations to them. That's the idea of operation. And for business continuity that I mentioned earlier on, their own operation is different from 9001. Same thing with 20,000, that is ITSMS. Same thing with ISMS, that is 27001. For 9001, there's something I used to mention. There's something they call performance calendar. There's something they call performance calendar. There's no way you want to do all of this. So on the top of your head, begin to have a mental picture of you have rendered a particular service for people. You have produced this. How do people buy and all of that? Now, at the end of the day, 9.1 is let's monitor or let's measure what we have done so far. Have we produced in line with what our specific requirements are? That's the idea of ISO 9001 clause 9. Internal audit is now saying that let's do internal audit. Let's audit ourselves. for all of these processes, the head of process A, come and tell us, how have you audited this? What are your risks? Have you treated your risks? Have you met your objective criteria and all of that? What about management review? We're talking about top management individuals, talking about these are the things that we have achieved. These are the continuous innovations that we have in the organization, right? When it comes to clause 10, please, can you still hear me? Hello, are you with me? You can give me thumbs up, you can unmute and speak so that I'll be sure that you are
Yes,
following.
I can hear you here.
Yes, I'm
Thank
with you, sir.
very much. Let me wrap up in 2 minutes. I will
can
give
hear
you
you.
for probably 3 minutes so that we'll have discussion. Thank you, Abdul Latif. Thank you, Lemi. For clause 10, right? For clause 10, we'll talk about non-conformities. There's no way we'll talk about non-conformities for the people that are used to management system that won't talk about root cause analysis, that won't talk about correction, that won't talk about corrective action. What do I mean by this? It's possible that you've done something that is not meeting the requirement. We call it non-conformity. If they are now non-conformity, right, what is the root cause? Let me cite a practical example. You're driving a car, it stops on the road, right? Let me say, why is it that that car stops on the road? Maybe you had to look for a particular mechanic that will just fix it on the spot so that at least they will not tow your vehicle or something along those lines, right? That's a rush work. That is just a correction on that point, just to move off the road. But the root cause analysis itself is saying that you have a fuel pump issue, right? The corrective action will sound like, before you drive out every morning, you need to be sure, maybe you scan your car, or on a monthly basis, you scan your car to know the status of your fuel pump so that you won't have any problem. I'm making it practical as much as possible so that you can reflect it on anything, across board, as the case may be, right? Continual improvement is, what are the continual improvement initiatives that we can bring to the table that can make your business better as an organization, right? Do you have any question for the few, is it 2 minutes that I have left now? Do you have any questions so that we quickly take that and wrap up?
I have a question.
Please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. I'm really interested. It's very interesting mentioning that every organization can actually key into ISO 9001. I'm glad about that. And in the course of the iterations, you mentioned the continuous process to achieving that. That is fantastic. But my concern is this: at what point in time will a company be said is ISO 9001 compliant? Given the fact that you mentioned lead implementer, lead auditor, QS practitioner. I hope all these things, are they internal certificates that will aid that process? Because at times you see some organizations, they will say ISO 2004 compliant. They will even go to the extent of even placing it at their notice board, or even on their product labels. Are you with me, sir? So
Yes,
now,
definitely.
as a small organization or as a small entrepreneur who want to aspire to this level, at what point in time will that company be said to be compliant? What are the practical process towards achieving that? And number two, I want to know, you mentioned lead implementer, lead auditor, QS practitioner. Are they internal to the process or external to the process? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for those questions. Let me be fast about it. My time is fast spent before I hand over to Mercy. So number one thing, as I mentioned, right, ISO 9001, right, is general. So this is what I mean by general. ISO 9001, you will not see somebody say, I am certified to ISO 9001 alone. An organization will get certified, say, we are quality management system certified. However, it's an individual that can get certified to QMS, LA, lead implementer. They are the ones that consultants, they are the ones that implement for your organization. They are the one that understands ISO 9000 and when it comes to clause 4 to clause 10, that they will implement every clause and subclauses for you as an organization. So it makes sense that every QMS manager, quality management system in the organization, and even every member in the organization gets certified when it comes to whether QMS practitioner, QMS lead implementer, QMS lead auditor is usually meant for the internal auditors in that organization or people that look into QMS to say, you have done the right thing, you have not done the right thing. So QMS lead auditor, they are the ones checking what lead implementer has done or has implemented. I hope I've answered that question. You said at what point? I think there is no particular time. You can start introducing it at, like right now. So that means there's no best time for you to implement. You can implement even right now so that you start having the benefit of quality management system. We've talked about brand reputation. So that means people understand that this particular organization is QMS certified. When you are bidding for contract, it gives you an edge. They understand that you deliver quality at every point in time. I hope I've answered that question. I think I will hand over
Thank
to
you very
Messi
much.
right now. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
sir. I think I'll hand over to Messi right now. My time is fast spent. Messi, please, over to you.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Bolaji. Please let's put a round of applause to him. Thank you so much for an excellent delivery of ISO 9001, talking about quality management systems. Thank you, every one of us, for staying by up until now. We won't be taking any further questions, please. So from now, we'll be going on a very short break. You can go straight, take a cup of water, just whatever you want to do at this point, you can go ahead and do. And we will reconvene at exactly 12 p.m. for the third session. So we'll be taking business analysis in the third session. I hope you don't want to miss that. So you can go for your break now and we'll be back at exactly 12 p.m. Nigerian time. Please don't go too far. Thank you so much.